They say that on certain nights, when the moon hangs red and full in the sky, you can still hear it, a baby crying somewhere in the wind. And if you listen closely enough beneath that cry, you'll hear something else. The broken sobs of a man who once had everything and lost it all because of one terrible choice. His name was Adamu. 10 years undefeated, 10 years of glory, 10 years of standing over fallen opponents while crowds chanted his name like he was a god walking among mortals. Mothers named their children after him. Songs were composed about his strength. Young girls dreamed of becoming his wife. But when the ultimate prize was offered, a princess so beautiful that kings had gone to war for her hand, when the greatest warriors from 7 kingdoms gathered to compete, Adamu did something that would curse him forever. He made a deal with something that should never be disturbed, something ancient, something that doesn't forget and never forgives. The price? Just one small thing, she said. The first fruit of his union, his firstborn child. He thought he could outsmart her. He thought he could cheat fate. He thought his strength made him invincible. He was wrong. And what happened to Adamu? What happened to his beautiful wife? What happened to that innocent baby girl born on a moonless night will make you understand why our elders say some victories are not worth winning and some bargains should never, ever be made. This is the story of the champion who had everything and the night he traded it all away for glory. This is the story of the wrestler's curse. Stay with me and I'll tell you how it all began in a village called Kapangeli, where a boy was born whose cry shook the rafters of his mother's hut. Stay with me and I'll show you how ambition and fear can turn a hero into a monster, how one moment of weakness can destroy generations, and why, even today, no one in the old kingdom speaks the name Adamu without spitting on the ground afterward. Are you ready? Then let me take you back to the days when spirits still walked among men, back to a time when a single choice could damn your soul forever. This is the story of Adamu, the wrestler, and I promise you, by the time I'm done, you'll never look at glory the same way again. In the days when the earth was young and the spirits still walked freely among men, there lived a wrestler named Adamu in the village of Kapangeli. Now, let me tell you about this man, because his story is one that our ancestors whispered around dying fires, a story that mothers told their sons as warning, and that old men recalled with trembling voices. Adamu was not like other men. When he was born, the midwife said his cry shook the rafters of his mother's hut. By the time he could walk, he was carrying water pots that grown women struggled with. By his 15th year, his arms were thick as iroko tree branches, and his chest was broad enough to shield 3 men from the rain. The gods, it seemed, had molded him from a different clay. Every year during the harvest moon, when the yams grew fat in the ground and the air hung heavy with expectation, the villagers would gather for the great wrestling festival. Young men would come from every corner of the land, their bodies oiled and gleaming, their hearts full of dreams of glory. And every year for 10 seasons, Adamu would stand victorious, his foot on the chest of whichever unfortunate soul had dared to challenge him in the final match. The first year he won, the village elders placed a leopard skin on his shoulders. The second year, they gave him a ceremonial staff carved from the rarest wood. By the 3rd year, they had composed songs about his strength. By the 5th year, his name had spread like wildfire through 7 kingdoms. Mothers named their children after him. Songs were composed about his strength. Young girls dreamed of becoming his wife. Old men claimed they had predicted his greatness from the day he was born. But you see, my friends, there is something dangerous about being undefeated. Something that creeps into a man's heart like smoke through the cracks of a hut. Adamu began to believe that he was more than mortal. He began to walk with his chest pushed forward and his eyes looking down on everyone else. He began to think that the spirits themselves had made him invincible. In his compound, he built a special hut to house all his trophies and prizes. Cow hides covered the walls, brass anklets and copper bracelets hung from the rafters like strange fruit. He would sit there in the evenings, running his fingers over each prize, counting them like a miser counts his calories, and each time he touched them, the hunger in his heart grew larger. Now, in those days, there was another kingdom across the great river, a place called Ugidi, ruled by King Ezenri. This king had a daughter, Princess Adaeze, whose beauty was spoken of in every market square from the coast to the desert. They said her skin was the color of fresh palm wine, that her eyes held the depth of ancient wells, and that her voice could make even the birds stop singing to listen. But more than her beauty, she was known for her wisdom and kindness. She would walk among the poorest people in her father's kingdom, sharing food with the hungry and medicine with the sick. King Ezenri loved her daughter more than all the treasures in his palace. He had refused countless marriage proposals from princes and warriors, from rich merchants and powerful chiefs. None of them, he declared, were worthy of his precious child. But the king was growing old, and the elders pressed him to find a suitable husband for the princess before his own death. After much thought, King Ezenri made a proclamation that sent shockwaves through the land. He announced that during the next great wrestling festival, he would host a special championship. Warriors and wrestlers from every kingdom would be invited to compete. The winner, and only the winner, would have the honor of marrying Princess Adaeze. But there was a condition, a test that revealed the king's wisdom. Any man who wished to compete must first spend 7 days serving in the princess's household, working alongside the servants, showing his character and his heart. When news of this championship reached Kapangele, the village erupted in excitement. Here was Adamu's chance for ultimate glory, not just to win another wrestling match, but to marry a princess, to become royalty himself, to achieve a status that would make his name immortal. But Adamu, sitting in his trophy hut that evening, felt something different. He felt fear. For 10 years, he had defeated local champions, farm boys with strong backs and brave hearts, but little skill. Now he would face trained warriors from powerful kingdoms, men who had been preparing for battle since childhood, men who had access to the best training and the best medicines. That night, as the moon rose full and red like a wound in the sky, Adamu could not sleep. He tossed on his mat, sweating despite the cool breeze. His mind raced with terrible thoughts. What if he lost? What if after 10 years of victory, he was finally defeated? The shame would destroy him. The songs would turn to mockery. The respect would turn to ridicule. He would become the champion who failed when it mattered most. As he lay there in the darkness, he heard a sound, a soft rustling outside his hut. Then a voice, thin as spider silk, calling his name. Adamu, Adamu, the undefeated one. He sat up, his heart pounding. Who calls me? Come outside, champion. I have something to show you. Against his better judgment, Adamu rose and pushed aside the cloth covering his doorway. Standing in his compound, barely visible in the moonlight, was an old woman he had never seen before. She was bent nearly double with age, her face hidden in shadow, her hands gnarled like tree roots, but her eyes, when they caught the light, gleamed with an unnatural brightness. "Who are you, old mother?" Adamu asked, though he knew something in his belly told him he did not want to know the answer. "I am someone who can help you," the woman said, her voice like dry leaves scraping against stone. "I know about the championship. I know about your fear." "I fear nothing," Adamu declared, but his voice shook slightly. The old woman laughed, a sound like bones rattling in a calabash. "Everyone fears something, mighty Adamu. You fear losing, you fear shame, you fear being ordinary." Adamu said nothing because her words struck too close to the truth. "I can give you something," she continued, reaching into the folds of her wrapper. "Something that will guarantee your victory, something that will make you truly unbeatable." She pulled out a small clay pot, sealed with wax and tied with black thread. Even from where she stood, Adamu could feel something wrong about it, something that made his skin crawl and his stomach turn. "What is it?" he whispered. "Medicine," the woman said. "Powerful medicine. Rub it on your body before the match, and no man will be able to stand against you. You will have the strength of 10 elephants. Your opponents will fall before you like grass before the scythe." Adamu stared at the pot. Every fiber of his being told him to refuse, to send this woman away, to trust in the strength the gods had already given him. But the fear was stronger, the fear of losing, of shame, of becoming nothing. "What do you want in return?" he asked, because he knew that such things always came with a price. The old woman's smile now widened, a gash across her face. "Nothing much, just a small thing. After you win, after you marry the princess, you will give me the first fruit of your union." "The first fruit?" Adamu repeated, confused. "Your firstborn child." Horror washed over Adamu like cold water. "You want me to give you my child? Never! I would rather lose 100 matches." The old woman shrugged, her bones creaking. "Then lose you shall, because the warriors who will compete are beyond your strength, Adamu. They have trained with the greatest masters. They have medicines and charms of their own. Without my help, you will fall, and all your glory will turn to dust." She turned to leave. "The choice is yours."
"Wait!" The word burst from Adamu's mouth before he could stop it. The old woman paused but did not turn around. Adamu's mind raced. Perhaps, he thought, perhaps he would never have children. Perhaps the marriage would be barren, or perhaps he could find a way around the agreement later. Surely his strength and cunning could defeat one old woman. "I accept," he said, and even as the words left his mouth, he felt something change in the air around him, something binding and terrible. The old woman turned, her smile now a horrible gash across her face. She walked back and placed the pot in his hands. It was cold, so cold it burned his palms. "Remember, Adamu, rub this on your body 1 hour before the final match, but never speak of our agreements to anyone, or the medicine will turn to poison and your own strength will destroy you from within." Then she was gone, vanished like smoke, leaving only the smell of decay and old graves hanging in the air. Adamu stood there holding the pot, and for a long moment he almost threw it away. Almost. But fear and ambition are powerful masters, and they had him firmly in their grip. The next morning, Adamu prepared for the journey to Ogidi. The whole village came out to see him off, singing songs of victory, certain that their champion would return with the princess as his bride. His mother wept with pride. His father raised his walking stick in salute. Young boys ran alongside his path, trying to touch him for luck. But all Adamu could feel was the weight of the clay pot hidden in his traveling bag, cold against his side. The journey to Ogidi took 3 days. When Adamu arrived, he found the king's compound already filled with warriors from across the land. There was Okonkwo from the eastern forests, a man so tall he had to duck through doorways, his muscles like iron bands. There was Bachule from the northern desert, whose speed was legendary, who could strike 3 times before an opponent blinked. There was Emeka from the western coast, who had defeated a lion with his bare hands. 20 warriors in all, each one magnificent, each one deadly. True to the king's decree, all the competitors had to spend 7 days working in the palace before the competition. They hauled water from the stream, they swept the courtyards, they helped in the kitchens and tended the animals. The king and his advisors watched them carefully, observing how they treated the servants, whether they complained about the work, how they behaved when no one important was watching. Adamu performed his duties mechanically, his mind always on the clay pot hidden in his sleeping quarters. But on the 3rd day, something happened that he did not expect. He encountered Princess Adaeze. She was in the garden, tending to the medicinal plants that she grew for the sick people of the kingdom. When Adamu came to fetch water from the nearby well, she looked up and their eyes met. In that moment, something shifted in Adamu's heart. He saw not just a beautiful face, but a soul of genuine goodness. She smiled at him, a simple gesture of kindness to a worker in her father's compound, and that smile cut through him like a blade. "You are a warrior, you are a wrestler," she said, not as a question but as a statement. "What is your name?" "Adamu from Bangele, my princess," he replied, bowing deeply. "Bangele," she repeated thoughtfully. "I have heard of your village. They say the people there are strong and honest, that they keep their word even when it costs them dearly." Adamu felt shame crawl up his spine like a serpent. "Yes, my princess, that is what they say." For the next 4 days, Adamu found himself drawn to wherever the princess was. He would volunteer for tasks that brought him near the garden or the healing house where she worked. They began to talk, brief conversations about simple things, about plants and healing, about the responsibility of leadership, about what it meant to be truly strong. And with each conversation, the weight of what he had agreed to do grew heavier. Princess Adaeze was not just beautiful, she was everything good that a person could be. She spoke of wanting a husband who valued kindness over conquest, who would rule with wisdom rather than strength, who would be a partner in building something better for their people. And Adamu realized with growing horror that he had already betrayed this woman before even meeting her. On the night before the competition, Adamu lay awake in the competitor's quarters, staring at the thatched roof above his head. The clay pot sat beside his sleeping mat, radiating its unnatural cold. He could still refuse to use it. He could compete with his own strength, win or lose fairly, and face whatever consequences came. His hand reached for the pot, intending to take it outside and smash it against a rock. But then he heard the other warriors talking in the darkness. They were discussing their own preparations, their own secret medicines and charms. Okonkwo had a charm from a famous medicine man that would make his bones unbreakable. Bachure had drunk a potion that would give him the reflexes of a hunting cat. Emeka had been blessed by a powerful shrine, his body anointed with oils that would make his skin as tough as elephant hide. Adamu's hand fell away from the pot. Everyone else was using medicine. Why should he be the only one to fight without advantage? He was simply leveling the ground, he told himself. The old woman's price was steep, but perhaps it would never come due. Perhaps the marriage would produce no children, or perhaps he could find a way to break the agreement. These lies he whispered to himself in the darkness, and by morning he had convinced himself they were true. The championship took place over 2 days. The tournament began with elimination matches, 3 wrestlers competing at once, the last man standing moving forward. Adamu watched the first rounds with growing dread. These warriors were indeed beyond anything he had faced before. They moved with practiced skill, their techniques polished by years of training. They were not farm boys playing at fighting, they were weapons honed for battle. When Adamu's first match came, he fought without the medicine, still clinging to some shred of honor. He won, but barely, and only through experience and cunning. His opponent, Chidi, had nearly pinned him twice. Adamu left the wrestling ground with bruises blooming across his ribs and a split lip that bled down his chin. The crowd murmured in surprise. The mighty Adamu of Bangele had struggled against an opponent who did not even make it to the final rounds. That evening, as the healers tended his wounds, Adamu made his decision. He returned to his quarters and opened the clay pot. Inside was a thick, dark ointment that smelled of earth and rot, and something else, something ancient and wrong. His hands shook as he began to apply it to his body, rubbing it into his skin. It burned where it touched him, a burning that went deeper than flesh, that seemed to sink into his very bones. And then the change came. Strength flooded through him like a river breaking its banks. His muscles swelled, his bones hardened. He felt as if he could uproot trees, as if he could crack boulders with his bare hands. But there was something else too, something dark that crept into his mind like poison, a voice that whispered to him, that told him he was invincible, that he was beyond ordinary men, that he was almost a god himself. The voice laughed, and Adamu realized with cold horror that it was the old woman's voice, now living inside his head. The final day of the championship arrived. By the afternoon, only 3 warriors remained: Adamu, the giant, and Emeka, the lion killer. They would face each other in succession, 2 matches, and the winner of the second match would claim the princess. The first match was Adamu against Okonkwo. The giant stepped into the wrestling circle with confidence, his body glistening with oils, his face set in grim determination. The crowd fell silent. The king leaned forward on his throne. Princess Adaeze watched with hands clasped before her, her face troubled as she looked at Adamu. The drums began. The wrestlers circled each other. Okonkwo moved first, lunging forward with the speed surprising for his size. But Adamu, powered by the old woman's medicine, was faster. He sidestepped, caught Okonkwo's arm and twisted. There was a sound like a tree branch snapping. Okonkwo screamed and fell to his knees, his arm hanging at an unnatural angle. The crowd gasped. This was too much force, too much violence for a sporting match, but the rules were clear. The match was over and Adamu had won. Adamu stood over the defeated opponent, and for a moment he felt not triumph but revulsion. He had broken the man's arm with casual ease, as if Okonkwo was made of straw. This was not the strength of a wrestler. This was the strength of something else, something monstrous. But the voice in his head laughed and urged him forward. One more match, one more victory, then the princess would be his. Emeka entered the circle. The lion killer was wary now, having seen what happened to Okonkwo. He circled Adamu like a predator, looking for weakness, finding none. They grappled, and again Adamu's unnatural strength prevailed. He lifted Emeka, a man who weighed as much as a full-grown bull, and slammed him to the ground so hard that the earth shook. Emeka did not rise.
The crowd was silent now, stunned. This was not the skilled combat they had expected. This was domination, brutal and absolute. But King Ezenri stood and declared Adamu the winner. A deal was a deal, and his word was law. That night, there should have been celebration. Instead, there was unease. The king invited Adamu to a private audience, and Adamu came with his heart pounding. King Ezenri sat on his throne, his ancient eyes studying Adamu like a hawk studies a snake. Princess Adaeze stood beside him, her face unreadable. "You have won the championship, Adamu of Pangele," the king said slowly, "and so you have won my daughter's hand as I promised. But before the wedding, I must ask you a question, and I demand the truth. Did you use medicine today? Dark medicine?" Adamu's mouth grew dry. The old woman's warning echoed in his mind. Never speak of the agreement, or the medicine would turn to poison. But the king's eyes seemed to see through every lie, every deception. "I used what I needed to use to win," Adamu said carefully, neither confirming nor denying. The king's face darkened. "I am old, boy, but I am not foolish. I saw unnatural strength today. I saw something that goes beyond scale or training. I know the signs of dark medicine when I see them." "Father," Princess Adaeze spoke for the first time, her voice soft but firm. "If Adamu has won according to the rules you set, then we must honor the agreement." The king looked at his daughter, and Adamu saw the pain in his eyes. But the princess was right. The king had given his word before all the kingdoms, and a king's word was sacred. "Very well," King Ezenri said at last. "The wedding will take place in 7 days. But hear me, Adamu of Pangele. If you have made a bargain with dark forces, if you have traded honor for victory, know that such bargains always collect their price, and the price is always more terrible than you can imagine." The wedding took place 7 days later, as decreed. It was a magnificent affair, with guests from every kingdom, with music and dancing, and enough food to feed an army. But Adamu could not enjoy any of it. The old woman's voice still whispered in his head, reminding him of his debt. And Princess Adaeze, beautiful in her wedding finery, looked at him with eyes that held both acceptance and sadness, as if she knew that their marriage was built on a foundation of lies. On their wedding night, as they lay together in the palace chambers prepared for them, Princess Adaeze spoke. "I know you used dark medicine, Adamu. I know you made some terrible bargain to win. You don't have to tell me what it was, but I want you to know that I see the truth." Adamu turned to face her, his heart breaking. "Why did you not speak against me then? Why did you let the wedding proceed?" "Because my father gave his word, and I will not make him break it. Because perhaps you can still choose to do what is right. Because I believe that even a man who has made a terrible choice can find redemption." She placed her hand over his. "But whatever you have promised, Adamu, do not think you can hide from it. Dark bargains always come due."
That night, Adamu held her wife and wept. He confessed everything: the old woman, the pot, the terrible price he had agreed to pay, and Princess Adaeze listened without judgment, though her face grew pale. "Then we must never have children," she said finally. "If we remain barren, the debt can never be collected." But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Within 3 months, Princess Adaeze discovered she was with child. When she told Adamu, he felt as if the ground had opened beneath his feet. The old woman's voice in his head laughed and laughed, a sound like thunder in the distance. "We will run," Adamu said desperately. "We will leave the kingdom, go somewhere far away, where the old woman cannot track us." "But where can you run from a spirit?" Adaeze asked sadly. "Where can you hide from a bargain sealed in blood and darkness?" But Adamu insisted. When the pregnancy advanced to 6 months, he made plans. He would take his wife and flee to the remotest village he could find, somewhere beyond rivers and mountains, somewhere the old woman could never track them. King Ezenri, discovering his daughter's pregnancy, was overjoyed. But when Adaeze told him of Adamu's bargain, the king's joy turned to cold fury. "You fool! You absolute fool! Do you know what you have done? Do you know who that old woman was?" "A witch," Adamu said weakly. "A dealer in dark medicine." "Worse," the king said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "She is Akpugo, the collector of debts. She is one of the ancient ones, older than kingdoms, older than memory. She offers people their heart's desire and then takes from them what they value most. Those who try to break their bargains with her suffer fates worse than death." "Then what should I do?" Adamu asked, terror finally breaking through his pride. "There is nothing you can do," the king said bitterly. "You should have fought with honor and lost. That would have been far better than this." But still, Adamu hoped. He took his wife and fled the kingdom, traveling by night, hiding during the day. They went north to the desert, then east to the forests, then west to the coast, always moving, always looking over their shoulders. Princess Adaeze endured the hardship without complaint, though the difficult travel made her pregnancy dangerous. They finally settled in a tiny fishing village where no one knew their names or their story. There, in a small hut far from any palace, Princess Adaeze gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. They named her Ogechi, which means God's time, hoping that perhaps the gods would protect what mortal strength could not. For 7 days, they kept the child hidden, speaking to no one, allowing no visitors. Adamu sat at the doorway of their hut with a machete across his knees, determined that nothing would take his daughter. He had not slept in those 7 days, his eyes red and wild, jumping at every sound. On the 7th night, as the full moon rose over the ocean, Adamu heard the voice. "It is time, Adamu, time to fulfill your bargain." She stood outside the hut, the old woman, exactly as she had appeared that night in Pangele. But now she saw her clearly. Her eyes were not human eyes. They were ancient and cold, holding depths of darkness that made him want to look away. "You cannot have her," Adamu said, breaking. "Take anything else. Take my strength. Take my life, but not my child." "Your strength is already mine," Akpugo said softly. "Your life is already mine. I have simply not chosen to collect them yet, but the child is the price we agreed upon." Princess Adaeze emerged from the hut, holding baby Ogechi close to her breast. "Please," she begged, "please, Ancient One. She is innocent. She has done nothing to deserve this." "Innocence is irrelevant. The debt must be paid." "Then take me instead," Princess Adaeze said. "I am willing. Let my husband and child live and take me in their place." The old woman tilted her head, considering. For a moment, Adamu dared to hope. But then Akpugo smiled. "No, princess. Your nobility is touching, but the bargain was specific. The firstborn child, that is what I will have."
Adamu moved then, raising his machete, intending to cut down this creature no matter what it cost him. But his arms would not move, his body would not obey him. He stood frozen, helpless, as Akpugo walked past him and took the crying baby from his wife's arms. "No!" Princess Adaeze screamed, falling to her knees. "No, no, no!" Akpugo held the child gently, almost tenderly. "Do not grieve too much, princess. The child will live. She will simply live with me in the places beyond human sight. She will serve me as payment for her father's ambition and greed." "Kill me!" Adamu finally found his voice, tears streaming down his face. "Kill me now! I cannot live with this!" "Oh, you will live," Akpugu said, her voice like winter wind through dead trees. "You will live a very long time, long enough to understand the true weight of your choices, long enough to see how one moment of cowardice can destroy everything beautiful in the world." Then she turned to leave, the baby still crying in her arms. But then she paused and looked back at Adamu. "And there is one more thing, Adamu. The medicine I gave you has a final price. You will never father another child. Your wife's womb is now closed. This daughter you traded away for glory is the only child you will ever have. Remember that when the years stretch before you, empty and childless." Then she was gone, vanished into the darkness, taking baby Ogechi with her. Her crying faded into the distance like a song ending, and then there was only silence.
Princess Adaeze collapsed, her grief beyond sound. Adamu stood like a statue, his mind unable to process what had just happened. All his strength, all his victories, all his glory meant nothing. He had won a wrestling match and lost everything that mattered. They returned to Ogidi eventually, broken people trying to put together the shards of their lives. King Ezenri welcomed them back, but the palace felt like a tomb. Princess Adaeze tried to conceive again, prayed to every god, visited every shrine, but the old woman's curse held firm. No child would ever grow in her womb again. Years passed. Adamu's fame as a wrestler faded. The songs about him turned from celebration to cautionary tale. People whispered when he walked by, pointing at the champion who had traded his child for glory. His own people in Bangele disowned him, saying he had brought shame to their village. The unnatural strength the medicine had given him gradually faded, but it left something behind, something terrible. His body began to change in horrible ways. His muscles, once his pride, began to wither and twist. By his 40th year, he could barely walk without pain. The medicine, it seemed, was consuming him from within, just as the old woman had warned it would if the bargain was broken or spoken of. Princess Adaeze stayed with him through it all, though the light had gone from her eyes. She tended him with the same kindness she showed everyone, but the love between them had died the night their daughter was taken. They existed in the same house, but lived in separate worlds of grief. King Ezenri died, and the throne passed to a cousin as there was no heir. This too was part of the old woman's curse. The great line of Ezenri ended because Adamu's greed had stolen away the next generation. In his final years, Adamu became a wanderer, traveling from village to village, warning anyone who would listen about the price of dark bargains. He became a living cautionary tale, a broken man whose body and spirit had been consumed by his own ambition. Some say he died alone in a forgotten place, his body twisted and broken. Others say he still wanders, unable to die, cursed to live forever with his regret. But everyone agrees on one thing. Sometimes, late at night, when the moon is full, you can hear a baby crying in the wind and an old man weeping in response, forever separated by a bargain that should never have been made. And in every village, when young men boast of their strength and speak of their ambitions, the elders tell them the story of Adamu the wrestler. They tell them that true strength is not in muscles or victories, but in integrity and honor. They tell them that what you become matters more than what you win. They tell them that some prizes are not worth the price you pay for them. Because in the end, my friends, Adamu had everything he thought he wanted. He had fame, he had glory, he had the princess as his bride. But he had gained it all through darkness and deception, and so it all turned to ashes in his hands. His quest to remain champion, his fear of losing, his greed for glory, these destroyed not just him, but everyone he loved. This is the lesson our ancestors wanted us to remember. This is why we tell this story around fires at night, not to frighten, but to remind. Remind us that choices have consequences, that honor matters more than victory, that what we do in darkness will eventually come to light, and most of all, that there is no championship, no glory, no prize in all the world worth trading away your soul, your integrity, and the people you love. Let those who have ears hear this story. Let those who have hearts remember it. And let those who seek glory understand that true greatness is not found in defeating others, but in conquering your own greed, your own fear, and your own darker nature. This is the story of Adamu the wrestler. This is the tale of the champion's curse. May we all learn from his tragedy. May we all choose the harder path of honor over the easier path of deception. And may we all remember that in the end, what we keep is far more important than what we win.